The champagne hadn't even gone flat when she humiliated me. I remember watching the bubbles fizz in my aunt's thrift store flutes while the rest of my family froze mid-toast. My knee was still on the deck, ring box still open, and Renee, standing above me in her little ivory dress, looked like she was trying to decide if she should laugh or spit. She didn't do either. Instead, she crossed her arms, tilted her head, and said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "I'm not marrying a man who still lives in a rented duplex and folds his laundry like his mom's still watching." There was this moment, like 2 or 3 seconds, where I thought she was joking. I needed her to be joking. I even laughed. A pathetic, nasal laugh that sounded like a balloon dying in reverse. But she wasn't smiling. No one was. That's the moment I realized. This wasn't just rejection. It was a performance. She took the ring from my hand, not to admire it, but to show everyone how tiny it was. "This looks like something out of a cereal box," she said. "Clive, seriously? I'm Clive, by the way. Sorry, details." I didn't think I'd have to introduce myself in the middle of an emotional drive-by. The worst part? My mom still clapped. I don't know if it was a reflex, or if she thought it would soften the moment. But there she was, clapping with her chin trembling and her eyes darting from me to Renee like she was watching a game show and had bet on the wrong contestant. I stood up. No one stopped me. I didn't even remember walking back into the house, but I remember closing the bathroom door behind me and just standing there, in my proposal suit, staring at the wall where the paint was starting to peel. It was quiet, except for someone outside dropping a fork on the deck and whispering, "Damn." I stayed in there for almost 20 minutes. Renee was gone when I came out. So was the ring. The next morning, her Instagram had a story. Her at brunch with 2 other girls, caption, "Dodged a bullet, nail polish light skin tone." And below it, a photo of her hand. No ring. Just her fingers forming a peace sign, and her middle one, aimed right at me. It's strange how something as small as a ring box can echo so loudly in your memory. Every time I close my eyes, I still see it. The crushed velvet flap open, the silver glint catching the sun, and her fingers, perfectly manicured in some trendy gray polish, pinching it from my hand like she was picking lint off a sweater. I thought she'd toss it, smash it, maybe leave it on the table as one final insult. But no, Renee took the ring and kept it. Just like that. She didn't even say she was keeping it. She just vanished, like she'd rehearsed the whole thing. Later that evening, when most of my relatives had awkwardly excused themselves, my cousin Felix found me in the garage, sitting on a stool, still wearing the same shirt, hands smelling like cocktail sauce. He offered me a lukewarm beer and told me he overheard something I needed to know. I braced myself, expecting another dig about how embarrassing I looked out there on one knee. But what he said was worse. He told me Renee had been texting someone named Beau all throughout the party, that she'd stepped away behind the tool shed twice, once right before I proposed and once right after. Felix wasn't a snitch, usually, but even he said her body language was weird. Too casual, almost bored, like she was waiting for the real show to start. I didn't believe him. Not fully. Not yet. But the name stuck with me. Beau. Who even names their kid Beau anymore? It sounded like a cartoon cowboy. I told myself it was probably nothing. Maybe an old college friend. Maybe she was venting to someone about the awkwardness of it all. But deep down, I knew better. That night, back in my room, the one I grew up in, with posters of bands I didn't listen to anymore, I went through her old messages. Not the recent ones. Those were wiped. Renee was careful like that. But she wasn't careful 3 months ago. Or 2 years ago, when she still trusted me with her unlocked phone while she showered. There he was. Beau. B glowing star in her contacts. I'd seen the name before. I thought it was short for Beatrice or something. Stupid me. The messages were from way back, before I even bought the ring. One said, "He's sweet, but stuck. You're the only person who really gets me." Another, "I'm not going to marry someone who has ketchup packets in his glove box." The rest, well, they weren't just texts. Some were photos. One in a hotel bathroom, another of a dinner table with 2 wine glasses, and Renee's necklace in the corner of the shot. I knew that necklace. I bought it. For her birthday. I sat there staring at the screen until it dimmed. And then I just shut down. Not in an explosive way. There was no yelling. No punching walls. Just this low, hollow silence that sank into my chest like wet cement. I didn't confront her that night. Or the next. Partly because I didn't know what to say, but mostly because I think some pathetic part of me was still hoping she'd text, call, apologize, say it was a mistake, that she was confused, that I meant something. But she didn't. Instead, my sister Jaleesa got a DM from Renee. It was just a screenshot of her Venmo. She'd requested $2,700. The message said, reimbursement for the last 2 years of emotional labor, since he clearly thinks I owe him something. She kept the ring, then billed me for her time, and I still hadn't said a single word to her. Not yet, but that was about to change, because a week later, she showed up at my workplace, wearing the ring, and she wasn't alone. It was a Thursday afternoon, around 2:30 p.m., when the office went uncomfortably silent. You know the kind of silence I mean. The kind that doesn't arrive naturally but slams into a room like cold air rushing through a cracked window. I was in the back corner of the dispatch office, eating a soggy egg salad sandwich and avoiding the new supervisor's fake small talk, when I noticed heads turning near the front entrance. I didn't even need to see her face to know it was Renee. I knew her walk, that overconfident glide like she was moving to the beat of music only she could hear. But it wasn't just her. Right behind her, one hand in his pocket and the other slung casually across her lower back, was a man who looked like he belonged in a luxury watch ad. Expensive blazer, Italian boots, hair like he didn't even need to try. And the moment I saw his face, my stomach turned inside out. Bo, from the photos, from the texts, from the other life she was building while I was budgeting out our grocery bills and meal prepping lentils like a loyal little idiot. They walked in like they owned the place. Renee's eyes scanned the room until they found me. She gave me the kind of smile people give when they want to be caught. Like this was all choreographed. A twisted dance she'd been waiting to perform on the one stage I hadn't fled yet. My job. Clive, she said, like she was greeting a neighbor she'd barely remembered. So this is where you've been hiding. I stood up slowly. My boss, Mr. Creeley, whispered something to one of the floor managers and ducked into his office. Everyone else just pretended to check their phones. I felt the burn of 30 eyes pretending they weren't listening. Renee stepped closer. She was wearing the ring. My ring. The one I financed over 11 months, eating off-brand cereal and skipping every Friday takeout just to afford. But it didn't look like my ring anymore. She'd added new side stones, dressed it up. The center diamond was the same, but it looked colder now, less like a symbol and more like a prop. I thought you should meet him, she said, motioning to Bo, who didn't extend his hand. Since you've been so curious. I didn't say anything. What could I say? I was standing in an office supply-stained polo, smelling like printer toner, while she flaunted the man she'd been seeing behind my back like a prize-winning greyhound. Bo spoke next. She told me everything, he said, about your little proposal stunt. Real brave of you. That did it. Something in me snapped, not in an aggressive, throw-a-chair way, but like a paper towel finally tearing after being stretched too thin. I looked at both of them. I nodded. Then I said something that surprised even me. Are you here to make sure I'm crushed? Or just bored? Renee blinked. Bo smirked like I'd just complimented his shoes. Neither of them answered. But then Renee stepped closer, too close, and lowered her voice. You know why I'm really here? I didn't respond. I wanted you to see that someone did want the ring, just not you attached to it. And that's when I noticed it. She was wearing his initials, his, as a charm on the bracelet I bought her 2 Christmases ago. The same bracelet she once told me was too special to wear outside the house. And now it was accessorized like a clearance rack charm set. They left 5 minutes later, walking out the way they came in, leaving behind the kind of silence you don't recover from in a day. Or a week. Maybe ever. But the worst part wasn't what she said. It was what came the next morning. An email. From a wedding planner. Subject line. Clive, we're finalizing headcount for the rehearsal dinner. And the email was addressed to me. Not by accident. By design. Because Renee was inviting me to her wedding. And she wanted me to know. I had a seat. I stared at the screen for a long time. Long enough that my laptop went to sleep twice and my sandwich on the desk beside me started to sweat through the wrapper. The subject line didn't change. Neither did the name at the top. From Events at Concordendavy. Calm. Subject. Clive, we're finalizing headcount for the rehearsal dinner herb. I opened it. Slowly. Stupidly. Like the way you peel back a bandage knowing it'll hurt, but still needing to see what's under it. The message was bright and chipper, full of florals and curated calligraphy. The first thing I saw Right beneath a digital watercolor of white roses and gold script that read Renee and Beau's rehearsal dinner was this line: Clive M. Confirmed RSVP, ex-fiancée, vegetarian. She didn't just invite me. She labeled me, like I was an exhibit. There was a tiny note below that said, "Please let us know if you'll be bringing a +1. Kindly avoid drama. It's a celebration." Heartsuit. I read it 5 times. I read it with my jaw locked, then again with my mouth open like I'd just bitten into something rotten. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. An auto-generated form. Some digital fluke. But Renee was not the kind of woman who made digital flukes. She designed them. Carefully. Purposefully. She was telling me, in front of God and Google's algorithm, that I had a seat at the table, just not at her table. I was an artifact now, a boxed-up relic of her past. Just another item in the wedding spreadsheet between signature cocktail choices and string quartet deposit. The rest of the email was standard fare, venue details, dress code, garden formal, links to the gift registry where every item was over $200, and a reminder that the rehearsal would begin at 4 o'clock sharp, followed by a catered dinner with options including filet mignon, salmon en croûte, and a vegetarian risotto, which I apparently had already been assigned without consent. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Instead, I opened a bottle of cheap red wine left over from my sister's last visit, sat on my floor in front of the space heater, and reread our old texts. The ones from 2 years ago. She used to send me voice memos when she was on her lunch break. Some were dumb jokes. Others were so intimate they made me feel like I mattered more than anyone else in her world. Then I got to one from the winter we snowed in together during that weird March blizzard. She had written, "You're the safest place I've ever known. Don't let me forget that." Now here I was. Forgotten. Labeled. Filed under vegetarian. I hadn't even told her I stopped being vegetarian last summer when my cholesterol dropped. She hadn't asked. But the part that broke me wasn't the invite. It was what came 3 hours later. A text. From her. "Hey, I figured you'd be weird about the email. Don't be. It's not a big deal. Just closure." Closure. Closure like it was a password reset. Like all she had to do was hit send, and the years I spent believing in her would be neatly zipped into a file and archived. I didn't answer. But she wasn't done. The next night, and I swear I'm not making this up, I got a package. No return address, just my name in gold ink and a wax seal I immediately recognized from one of her old Pinterest boards. Inside was the ring box. The empty ring box. And a note that said, "You should probably keep this. I won't be needing it anymore." There was no apology. No explanation. Just that. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that something else was in the box. Something I had hidden there. Something even I forgot about. And once I found it, the whole game changed. I held the box for a full minute before I opened it again. Just sat there in my dark little apartment, lit only by the TV, playing some rerun I wasn't watching, with the thing in my hand like it might bite me. It was the same box I'd hidden behind old tax papers and expired medicine in the drawer under the sink. The one I spent weeks picking out so it would match her favorite jewelry case. It still smelled faintly like the cinnamon candles she used to burn when she cleaned. Same velvet interior. Same hinge. Same tiny pressure slot where the ring once sat. Only now it was empty. Except it wasn't. There was something tucked under the lining. A folded square of paper. I almost missed it. My breath caught. I reached in and pulled it out slowly, like it might disintegrate in my fingers. I unfolded it and saw my own handwriting. Faint, a little smudged, written with a black ballpoint pen I used to keep clipped inside my wallet. And just like that, I remembered. A year ago, maybe more, back when I was still in that ridiculous stage of thinking everything needed to be meaningful, I'd written a note. A tiny, private one. Meant just for her. Not to be read during the proposal. Not even meant to be read aloud. Just a secret sentiment hidden in the ring box like a whisper she'd discover someday on her own. A moment within a moment. But she never found it. Not until now. And now it was in my hands again. The note read, "If you're reading this, you said yes. And I don't deserve it, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to. Please don't ever forget how much I love you. Even when I mess up. Even when I'm tired. Even when I feel small. You've made me feel like more than I ever believed I was. Thank you for choosing me." I stared at that last line for a long time. Thank you for choosing me. It was almost funny. She didn't just not choose me. She made sure I knew I was never even in the running. I stood up, note in hand, and paced the room for what felt like an hour. My mind started spinning in a dozen directions. Regret, embarrassment, rage, self-pity, all of it swirling into a mess I couldn't untangle. And then something sharper broke through. Something I hadn't felt in weeks. Clarity. She didn't read the note when she was supposed to. But she had it now. And maybe, just maybe, it had hit a nerve. Because if she truly wanted nothing from me, she would have thrown the box out. She wouldn't have mailed it back in that pristine, perfectly wax-sealed envelope. She wanted me to open it, to feel small, to be reminded. But she forgot the note, and I wasn't about to let that go. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up scrolling through her social media, which she'd made public again, probably on purpose. The wedding countdown was at 13 days. The venue was tagged, some ridiculous vineyard 3 hours away, all white columns and imported peacocks and a fire pit shaped like a grand piano. She was calling it the rebirth in her captions. I was being written out like a bad subplot. But I knew something she didn't. I still had the old hard drive. The one I used when we lived together. She never liked cloud storage. Said she didn't trust it. So she backed up everything locally. Work files, emails, saved photos, journals. She asked me to set up a mirrored backup. And I did. Quietly. Automatically. Every week. Then I forgot about it. Until now. And when I plugged it in, it was all still there. Every photo. Every draft. Every document. And one folder she thought was deleted. One that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. What was in that folder? Proof. Not just of Beau, but of someone else. The folder was called work_archive_final_final. The kind of desperate file name you only use when you've renamed something 5 times and still aren't ready to let go. I wouldn't have noticed it if I wasn't looking for it. It was buried deep, nested in layers of client PDFs, mock-up drafts, and pitch decks she used when she was freelancing. The modified date was over a year old, and at first, I thought it was harmless. Just some old work files. But the moment I opened it, I knew this wasn't work. Not unless her job involved selfies taken in hotel mirrors wearing nothing but someone else's dress shirt. The first photo was grainy, poorly lit. She was in a high-rise bathroom. I could see the skyline in the reflection behind her, and she had that expression she only used when she was trying to look effortlessly seductive. The one I used to fall for. Then came the videos. Short ones. Stupid ones. 15, 20 seconds each. Some were just her talking to the camera in a voice I hadn't heard in months. Whispery. Giddy. Like she was hiding in a closet with her phone and a secret. One clip was her laughing into the lens, holding a champagne flute, and saying, "He has no idea I'm here. None. He thinks I'm out with Claire. Can you believe that?" I paused the video. Replayed it. "He has no idea I'm here." She was talking about me. She had to be. I moved on. Clicked the next file. It was a screen recording of a message thread, not with Beau. This was a new name. S. That's all the contact was listed as. Just the letter. The messages were months old, way before the engagement, but the tone? The intimacy? It wasn't some fling. This wasn't cheating out of boredom. This was maintenance. Rotational. Habitual. You wore the tie I like last night smirking face. Beau's getting too clingy LOL. You're still my favorite though. Always will be. Can't wait for next Tuesday. Wish it were you I was coming home to. I sat back in my chair, numb. It wasn't the betrayal anymore. I was past that. It was the scope of it. The planning. The layers. Renee wasn't impulsive. She was calculating. She curated her life like a brand campaign. And I was just one of the logos. One of the partnerships she used before landing her next sponsorship. And this S guy, he was still in the picture. Maybe even closer than Beau ever realized. I started to notice patterns in the file names. Clues. Some had location tags. I cross-checked the timestamps with old texts she sent me. One video, labeled S_September, was recorded the night she told me she was sick and couldn't make it to my uncle's birthday dinner. I'd spent the whole night making her soup and leaving it outside her door like some kind of loyal mutt. I watched her laugh on camera in another man's lap while I waited for a text that never came. But then I noticed something else. One of the videos was recorded inside our old apartment. I paused it frame by frame. I recognized the couch, the chipped coffee table, my hoodie on the armrest. She wasn't alone, and she wasn't whispering, which meant she didn't care if I walked in, which meant maybe I was never supposed to walk in. Maybe she wanted me to. And suddenly, all of it started clicking. The coldness, the manufactured fights, The little barbs she'd throw at me right before leaving town. The way she'd complain I was too clingy, while actively pushing me away. She was building the exit long before she stepped through it. But the biggest twist? The folder wasn't just hers. There were screenshots he sent her too. Had a face, a voice, a job, and I knew him. He wasn't a stranger. He was someone I'd introduced her to. Someone who came to our New Year's party 2 years ago and brought a bottle of wine we never opened. Someone who once pulled me aside and said, "Man, she's a catch. You're lucky." His name was Spencer. He was married. And Renee? She wasn't just his secret. She was planning something with him. Something I was never supposed to find. But I had. And now, I had a decision to make. Because the wedding was in 11 days. And I was holding the kind of truth that doesn't just break hearts. It burns bridges. 11 days. That's how long I had to decide what kind of man I wanted to be. 11 days to stare at this pile of digital poison sitting on my desk like it was waiting to be weaponized. I didn't sleep much. My eyes burned from staring at the screen too long, replaying the same grainy videos, analyzing every flirtatious smirk and whispered confession like I was decoding some ancient betrayal. But I wasn't confused anymore. Not about Renee. Not about Spencer. Not about any of it. The thing is, when someone breaks your heart, the pain is loud, immediate. But when they mock your heart, when they parade around town in your stolen ring and call it a trophy, that kind of pain simmers. It matures. It becomes something else entirely. Clarity. Spencer was married. Still is, technically. His wife, Alina, was the kind of woman Renee used to call dangerously polite, soft-spoken, art teacher, always sent handwritten thank you cards. I hadn't seen her in nearly a year, but I remembered how she complimented the pasta I made once like it was a Michelin dish. I wondered if she knew her husband was sneaking around with the woman who called me Plan B behind my back. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called her. It took 3 tries. My hand shook so hard the first 2 times I dropped the phone. But the third time, she picked up. "Hello." Her voice was exactly how I remembered it. Gentle, unsure. I introduced myself. There was a pause. Then another. Then she whispered, "I know." At first, I thought she was just saying it, like a reflex. But then she said it again. "I know about her. I didn't know it was your fiancée. I'm so sorry." She wasn't angry. She wasn't crying. She sounded exhausted. Like someone who'd been carrying this weight a long time and finally had someone to share it with. We talked for almost 2 hours. What she told me made everything I'd uncovered look like child's play. Renee and Spencer had been seeing each other for over a year, but it wasn't random. It was intentional. Calculated. Alina had found a series of emails last summer. They weren't just romantic. They were transactional. Forwarded apartment listings. Budget spreadsheets. A Google Doc labeled the escape plan. They were going to leave us. Together. Quietly. After Renee married Beau. Yes, after. Turns out Beau was more than just a rebound. He was money. Power. Access. His family had connections in publishing. Spencer had a manuscript. Renee wanted influence. They were going to milk the wedding, the gifts, the photos, and then vanish together with a shared bank account and a preloaded PR story about falling out of love. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a business strategy. And somehow, I had everything I needed to prove it. Photos, messages, timelines, names. I sent the folder to Alina that night, not as revenge, but as alliance. We agreed on one thing by the time the call ended. They weren't going to get away with it. Now I know what you're thinking. Confront them. Burn it all down. Storm the wedding with a mic in hand and watch their empire collapse like a soap opera finale. But I wasn't interested in theatrics. I wanted silence. Silence that lingers. Silence that twists in your stomach at 2 a.m. when you're alone in your designer sheets wondering why your phone won't ring. So we planned something simple. Not loud. Not public. Just precise. And it started with a letter. Written on creamy ivory stationery. Hand-delivered. To Beau's mother. Inside. A single USB drive. And a note. Before you pass her your family name, you might want to know what she plans to do with it. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. Because 2 days later, 9 days before the wedding, the RSVPs disappeared from Renee's Instagram. The countdown vanished. And Renee? She showed up at my front door at 3:17 a.m. in the same hoodie she once accused me of outgrowing. No makeup, no heels, just panic. And one question. What did you do? She stood there, barefoot on the porch like a ghost from a life I barely recognized, shaking and clutching her phone like it was the last piece of her world still working. Her mascara wasn't smudged because she hadn't worn any. Renee always wore mascara, even to the grocery store. That told me everything. "Clive, what did you do?" she repeated, her voice tight with panic. I didn't answer right away. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, but because, for once, I didn't feel like I owed her anything. Not an explanation. Not a defense. Not even closure. She looked past me, into the living room, like maybe Spencer was hiding there. Or Beau. Or God himself with a whiteboard and answers. But it was just me. Quiet. Calm. And for the first time in months, completely clear. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "You did this," I said, not angry. "Just steady. I just stopped covering for you." Her eyes darted like she wanted to argue, to twist it somehow, to spin the story back into her favor. But nothing came out. "You told me I was plan B," I continued. "Turns out I wasn't even on the list. You made sure I saw that. Publicly. Loudly. Over and over. And now that the walls are caving in, you come to me. What? For help? For rescue? For comfort?" Silence. I took a deep breath and stepped back. "You should leave, Renee. There's nothing here for you." She opened her mouth, maybe to beg, maybe to cry, but the words never formed. And after a long pause, she finally turned and walked down the steps. I didn't watch her go, because that story was over. It's been 6 weeks since that night. The wedding never happened. Beau's mother pulled all funding the moment she saw the contents of the drive. His family swept the fallout under a very expensive rug, and from what I hear, Beau relocated to San Diego and started seeing a Pilates instructor named Harper. Renee vanished from social media entirely. Last I heard, Spencer's marriage ended quietly, and he moved out of state. I don't know where he is. I don't care. As for me, I started therapy. Real therapy. Not the watch a YouTube video about trauma kind, actual sessions. I've been unpacking years of silence. Years of trying to be enough for someone who only saw me as a placeholder. Turns out, the version of me that Renee dismissed, quiet, awkward, overthinking Clive, he wasn't broken. He was just tired of trying to earn love that should have been given freely. I'm still at my job, but I've applied to new roles. Bigger ones. I even bought a new blazer. One that fits. My sister Jaleesa helped me pick it out. She said it makes me look like someone who knows his own worth. Last Sunday, I went to the beach alone. Just me, a thermos of coffee, and a book I've been pretending to read for a year. I didn't check my phone. I didn't scroll through memories or emails. I just sat there, barefoot in the sand, watching the tide erase the footprints people left behind. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like a joke. I felt like a man who finally let go of the wrong story, so he could start writing the right one.